Welcome to the BlackInCompBio podcast series. It's Jenea again, and we're back with another great episode. Before we get to our special guest, I'd love to share with you some exciting news. You may recall that we've recently announced that we are a nonprofit organization now. However, I'm also glad to say that we are an officially registered 501c3. This means that we are a federally recognized tax-exempt organization and can expand programming and resources in unique ways. This also means that any donations to BWCB are tax deductible. We'll share more details soon about the best ways to make contributions, but for now, you can visit our verified PayPal charity page for one-time gifts. We are incredibly grateful to those who've consistently donated to BWCB thus far. And trust me, do know that this has genuinely made a positive impact on our community. It's supported things like our website, our resources like Zoom, anything for our online platform. It's kept the lights on for us for 3 years now. So we're very thankful to those who have made this commitment to supporting us for such a long time. Thank you. To this end, we are pleased to announce that the Black Women in Computational Biology Network has been selected as a 2023 Tech Equity Collective Impact Fund recipient. Tech Equity Collective, an initiative started by Google, accelerates Black innovation and representation in tech by bringing together community and industry partners to create programs and experiences that lead to tangible progress of Black tech innovators. The Tech Equity Collective Impact Fund, with support of Goody Nation, provides financial funding to U.S. Black and tech organizations, equipping aspiring Black professionals focused on core engineering and technical roles with the skills and tools to thrive in tech. We are proud Tech Equity Collective advocates. To celebrate this and many more accomplishments, we're hosting a virtual community mixer on Saturday, June 10th at 12 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. We'll also be sharing future plans for our community stakeholders, hosting roundtables, and creating networking space for you to make new connections with members and other computational biologists. Registration is free, yes free, and you can find it at BlackWomenCompBio.org/events. Other upcoming ways to engage include another podcast we'll be releasing after this in June, our Open Journal Club on June 28th, and our long-awaited live, on Zoom of course, BlackInCompBio seminar, which is going to take place on July 26th. To stay up to date on these engagement opportunities, join us as a member or supporter and follow us on our social platforms. So I think we're now on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. We might have a Facebook page out there. And then there's also our website, so you can always stay up to date on what's coming and add things directly to your Google Calendar so you don't forget. We can't wait to see you there. Now, on to the show. Today's episode was co-hosted by myself, Melyssa, Minto, and Winfred Gatua. Today, we have Dr. Segun Fatumo, an associate professor of Genetic Epidemiology and Bioinformatics at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. He is also the founder of the Nigerian Bioinformatics and Genomics Network. He has made some significant contributions to the field as it relates to genetic risk scores and capacity building for genomics research throughout Africa. And we are so excited to hear about his career journey, research efforts, as well as his outreach. And just a disclaimer, we continue to work on our audio engineering skills and appreciate all of your patience during each and every episode. I must admit, this was a difficult episode to record over Zoom, but we're so excited that we've gotten our full conversation ready to go for y'all to view and listen to. So thank you in advance for your listening, and we'll just go ahead and welcome Dr. Fatumo.
All right, let's, before we dive into some questions about your career journey and your research, let's start with a random science trivia question. So, what is the tallest type of grass, and which African country is the largest grower of this grass?
Okay, so that must be Babu from Ethiopia. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay, great.
That was really quick.
Okay.
We can just start talking about how you got to where you are today. How did you get here? Can you tell us a little bit more about your background? And in that, did you know that science was always going to be part of your future?
Okay, so thank you. That was a very good question. So I will start by saying that I was born in Lagos, in Nigeria. So I was born in a family. I have 5 other siblings. I'm the first of the family. One of the children. I'm the first of them. So in my family, everybody have sickle cell traits or sickle cell disease. So my younger brother has sickle cell disease. So what that means is that he inherited 240 gene from my parents. And I inherited 1, so I have sickle cell trait, and he inherited 2, he has disease. So as we're growing up, he was always having unbearable pain, very sick every time. And, I watched him crying every time, almost every month. It was really unbearable for him. So doctor say he has sickle cell disease, and every one of us also has sickle cell trait. But the difference is that I was not getting sick, even with a bite of mosquito. So it was very confusing for me because doctor said even that 40 gene that I inherited was not doing any bad thing to me. It was even protecting me from getting malaria. So I was really interested in trying to understand what was going on for me and also for my brother. So that's at the early stage where I started showing some interest in genetics.
Mm-hmm. And did you know at that time, where was sickle cell research at that time? Did we know a lot about it, or how did you get into sort of the science side of what was happening?
Yeah, at that time I didn't know anything about it. Well, I know a lot about the pain that my family was passing through. And I also know a lot about the confusion I had in my head about why I had a 40 gene that was protecting me. So I grew up trying to understand that. So eventually I went to university. I didn't study genetics in Nigeria, maybe because there was no university that was offering genetics at that time. So for my PhD, so I started diving into my master degree and PhD, started diving into understanding bioinformatics, doing some genetics. Now that is all I do. Genetics, try to understand the contribution of genetic variation into different kind of disease.
I'm curious to know how your research interest morphed between your initial interest in the field to what you did in grad school, and how you kind of spun that to running your own research lab now.
Okay, that's great. So I started off with a degree in computer science. So that means that I had capacity to do programming, and I was interested in doing some bioinformatics to understand some biological questions. So that also means that I didn't have a lot of knowledge of biology. I didn't have any knowledge about genetics. So my bachelor degree, my master degree was major in computer science. So that has a lot of challenges when I was going into doing genetics, because I had to learn what is DNA. And so how does DNA translate from one state to another, and all kind of stuff. I needed to learn that. So I had to do that on my own. So I had to learn so many things, including the very basic thing that you think about. So I found it difficult initially to understand all that gene. How does gene work? How many genes do we have? And all kind of stuff. So it was a bit challenging for me, coming from a different background of computer science, to start learning some stuff about biology and also some stuff about genetics. But over time, I was able to understand the basics.
Nice. I'm curious to know what, you were going from computer science to genetics. What was something that you learned that was just really mind blowing for you at the time?
So something that was mind blowing. So there's so many things that have been mind blowing. So the first one was the Human Genome Project. In early 2002, 2003, when the Human Genome Project was complete. So you would think that was a genetic project. But the story in the news that you need people that have background in computer science to analyze data. The story was that we needed a large computer to store the data. So it wasn't really about the genetic alone. And so many people like me were moving from genetics to try to understand that biology. So that was mind blowing. So, in those days, people would try to study one subject and know that subject very well. But things have changed a lot now because now we need to be multidisciplinary. So the fact that you study biology does not mean that you don't know how to write programming or you don't know mathematics. So that was something that was very challenging at that time. So even now, when I look at the amount of data in my group that maybe PhD students or postdoc have to analyze, that can also be very challenging because you need enough resources to be able to do that kind of analysis.
All right. Thank you, Segun. And just to follow up on what Melyssa has covered, would like to know what your experience has been so far, like transitioning from being a graduate student and now you've grown your career to a faculty member.
Yes, so I've had a different experience from being a graduate student to what I do now. So I mentioned one experience is trying to understand the very basic of biology and genetics, which was difficult. Of course, for people that study biology, they think that, it's easy to learn biology. It was more difficult to learn computer science, but that's not the case every time. So everybody's try to understand something. So that's one experience. Other experience is trying to get the right kind of knowledge for this kind of generation that we are. So like I said, I study in Nigeria. My bachelor degree, my master degree, and my PhD were in Nigeria. So it was very, very difficult for me to really penetrate through the global world, to be able to be seen and be visible with what I'm doing now. Most of my colleagues are either studying in Cambridge or studying in Oxford or studying in Bristol or studying in the big university that all of you are today. But I didn't study in all those universities. So it was really a lot of challenge trying to come out from my university in Nigeria to be able to do what I'm doing today. So one thing that really helped was that I had my postdoc. One of my postdocs in the US. I did another postdoc at the Wellcome Saga Institute at the University of Cambridge. So those postdocs gave me a lot of leverage to be able to move and understand how research works in this in developed world, and to be able to move to what I'm doing today.
Yeah, actually, I would love to ask you more about that, because that is an experience that a lot of our members also encounter when we're talking about who actually gets to participate in the global landscape of science. Sometimes, even if you have the credentials, the degrees, the experience, there's a barrier there of who gets invited to share their knowledge. So I guess just what is your perspective on what are those concrete challenges, especially for our members from the continent? And how might you navigate something that can be so difficult?
Yeah, so it can be very difficult not to be seen or not to be recognized. But one thing that is very important is that if you do excellent science, people are going to see your work. So if you do excellent science, you publish your paper in a good journal, there's no way people are not going to see your work. And when people see your work, they're going to contact you. They're going to want to collaborate with you. They want to invite you to conferences. They want to be a keynote speaker. They want to be an invited speaker. They want to come to the university and give seminar because they have seen your work. Because this is this kind of research, it cannot be hidden. But many mistakes that some of our colleagues make, particularly people in a low income country, is that you do average research or you do low quality research and nobody read that, nobody see that. So I think for all of us, we must aim to do an excellent research and put it out there for people to see. So that's one way to be visible. Another way is that now we now live in a very small world. You can be in either in Etebe or you be at a corner room in London or in New York, and just put something on Twitter, everybody will see it. So if you have done some very brilliant work, even though you have not published that work, you can put it on Twitter and say, oh, we've just completed our work and this has been an exciting work. We found X, Y, and Z. And put it there. Everybody will see. So I use Twitter a lot. I use LinkedIn a lot to publicize my work. So I think now there are no excuse to say that, to say people are not seeing what I'm doing. We must make our own personal efforts to put out what we are doing out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll come back to your online presence and how important that is in a few questions. So
yeah, thank you very much, Segun. Indeed, I went through your portfolio and I realized you've massive experience with postdoc. So I was wondering, do you have like a go-to site whereby you can recommend graduate students to actually visit for post-PhD positions?
Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah, that's one way. Of course, there are so many websites. But for my own postdoc, I did 2 postdocs, and I did not apply for any of those 2 postdocs. So one thing that is very important to know is that mentorship is key. You need to be in the right setting. You need to be in the right network. So for my own postdoc, I went for a workshop in Ibadan, in Nigeria. And so my supposed postdoc supervisor came from the US. And she came from the US. I was at the workshop and I was trying to help her. She didn't ask for the help. I was trying to help her in the workshop to help the students, even though I was also a participant in the workshop. And she noticed me and started talking to her about my project, what I was doing. And that was it. 3 months after the workshop, she sent me an email. She gave me an offer to be a postdoc. So I didn't apply for that. That was very interesting, you see. Yeah. So that was my first postdoc. Very interesting. So what I'm saying is that if you are in the right network of people, so things can be much more easier. So that's one way. And another way is that, of course, you can apply to many places. And even when you apply to many places, don't forget that they also need recommendation. So you need to have some mentors, you need people that can advise and say, oh, apply to this particular place or apply to that particular place, because they understand how this thing works.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we have, a lot of people in our communities who are deciding if the postdoc is the right path for them. In short, what would you say was your main motivation for deciding on the postdoc? What did you get out of the experience that was different than your doctoral training?
So, like I said, my doctoral training was completely different. So my master degree and PhD, they were in bioinformatics, and I was awarded a degree in computer science. So that means that I had no understanding about genetics. So for my postdoc, I was looking for opportunities to learn something new. And it was during my postdoc I learned how to perform genome study and all those other methods around that, and how to take some leading position. If you are in this kind of landscape, so you have to be able to work with collaborators all over the world. So it was my postdoc. I had that experience of working with collaborators from all over the world and trying to coordinate a big project. So those kind of skills are very important. Both soft skills and hard skills, they are very, very important. So for me, what I did for my PhD was almost completely different from what I did for my postdoc at the Sankara Institute. And since then, I've taken on board to continue what I did after in my postdoc at the Sankara Institute.
So I'm curious to learn about your role as an associate professor now. Can you tell us what your, if you had to put it in percentages, what your role breakdown is? How much time do you spend teaching and researching? And let's just start there.
Okay, so I think I do a lot of time doing research, and I also do a lot of administrative work. Today I've been battling with a grant and see how much has been spent and how much is not spent, how much we have. all those kind of stuff when I was in my postdoc. I never had an idea that I would be doing that. Or talking about ethics or things that admin stuff, boring things that we don't like to do, but I have to do them. And so, but I like today also, I've taken my time to look at papers from 2 PhD students. Paper have been reviewed, look at it, read through the paper, and ensure that they are of high quality before they send to journal. So I do a lot of that also. And also I do some teaching. I don't do a lot of teaching like I used to do before. So I teach at the London School of Hygiene and Medicine. I teach here at GWAS. I did one in March. I'm doing another one in May. So I can do that maybe about 2 or 3 times in a year. So I don't spend off my time teaching. But it depends on what you mean by teaching, because every week I have a one-to-one meeting with my PhD student and postdoc. So for me, that's also a form of teaching. So we discuss their projects, we look at the projects, and they also discuss other things that are important to them. So that's the time I have that time with them to make sure that they are within target for their PhD and they complete at the appropriate time. So I do teaching, I do research, I also do kind of community development.
Yeah, I really love that mentorship seems to have played a really pivotal role in your career, and it also looks like you're doing the same thing for your PhD students as well. Can you talk a little bit about your mentorship philosophy and how that's valued at your institution?
So that's an excellent question. Mentorship is key for the kind of work that we do. And so it doesn't matter whether you're a PhD student. So at my stage, my current career stage, I still have mentors. And I ask them questions. And I want to, because they are people that are ahead of me. So they know more than me and they can guide me. So I don't need to make the mistake that they make, because the reason why they are there is to be able to guide me. So I think a mistake that many people make is to think that they can be self-made, or they think that it's fine for them to navigate through themselves without relying on anyone. Of course, they might get to their destination, but it might take longer to get to their destination. You could as well just rely on a mentor who can guide you. So I think mentorship is very key. So I have received a lot of mentorship from different people in my field, and people that are not in my field. And those mentorship has been very, very useful for me. And I try my best also to provide different kind of mentorship to different people, including my PhD students and my postdoc, and also the younger people in the group. So my philosophy is that if you want to go faster, you should ensure that there's somebody ahead of you that can help you navigate the road.
That's beautiful. I love that. Could you talk about like the different stages of professorship at your institution, and like what stage you're in, and what those evaluation processes to get like promoted are?
Okay, so in my institution, most people after their PhD, they can move on to be a research fellow. So to do a research fellow, it's more like a postdoctoral position for a while. So you do research fellow. From there, you can move on to be an assistant professor. An assistant professor in my institution is seen as a junior position. From there, you move on to become an associate professor. And from there, you move on to become a professor. So this is where I understand this works at the London School of Hygiene and Medicine. So to move from one stage to the other, there's always an interview. You need to apply for a promotion. So there's a guideline, very clear guideline on how to move from one career stage to another. But if you are moving from, say, associate professor to professorship, so this guideline is a bit different because your application needs to be sent to external reviewers who will look at your application and say you are really qualified to become a professor. So I think this is what they do at the London School of Hygiene and Medicine, which might be slightly different from other universities, but very similar to many universities.
you've talked about the importance of mentorship and how you've gotten to this point already. But what has been really key for you at your stage to maintain those relationships, especially since it seems like, in academia, that really is what goes into your evaluation for getting a promotion and moving up and being able to get more resources for your work. So the main question is how to maintain those relationships as you progress in your career.
Yeah, I think whether you want to maintain that relationship is up to you. For me, I'm still collaborating with my previous PhD supervisor and my previous postdoctoral supervisors. I'm still collaborating with them because we do things that are very similar. But in some cases, it might be that you don't have to collaborate with them. Maybe people have moved on their way. But what I will always advise is that, when you leave a supervisor, don't just leave and jam the door, because you can never tell. You might need that door again. So it doesn't mean that you have to continue collaborating with them, but you just live in the best way possible. So I have a good relationship with all my previous supervisors and mentor, and I hope that will continue for a very, very long time.
Yeah, that's so important. And I think also as a current PhD student, you sometimes forget how important people's words are for you, their support in spaces where you're not always, welcome to or a part of. It seems like it really does go a long way. And I'm definitely starting to value that more as I progress. So thank you for sharing different ways that can look like as you just maintain connections with people. We're now going to start talking a little bit more about your impacts outside of your role, your many roles, and especially your online presence, your science communication, and the way that you engage critically with the scientific community, which is something that is really important to BWCB. One thing I noticed is that you are very active on YouTube. You have a very inviting presence there. And the topics that you share are super important for students and trainees and actually scientists at all stages. So what motivated you to start just sharing your stories there, and why is that work important to you?
Okay, am I? Okay, so I use different social media platforms for different things. Mm-hmm. I'm on Twitter, so I use Twitter mainly for academic purpose, of scientific purpose. So I just tweet things that have to do with my career or my job on Twitter. Mm-hmm. I don't tweet anything personal on Twitter. So that is personal to me. I just use that for professional platform. Mm-hmm. So the same thing also with LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. So I'm on Facebook, but Facebook is personal. So I can put family picture on Facebook, but you never see me put family picture on Twitter or on LinkedIn. And so I've done a bit of YouTube recently, and I do that purposely for something completely different, because I have so many people, friends and family live in Nigeria, in Uganda, in Ghana, and they keep on asking me the same question over and over again. So I find it useful to use YouTube because I just record the answer to that question on YouTube. And so that when somebody asks, I just say, "Oh, this is a link, so you can go ahead and listen to it." So that was the reason why I'm now on YouTube, and I try to provide some solution to some very important questions to some people.
Yeah, I mean, I still think that's really impactful, though. I can guarantee that, like, my parents don't necessarily know, the ins and outs of what I do, but being able to boil down resources that could be really important to people in our communities is really amazing, and it is a skill. So on Twitter and LinkedIn, can you share more about the types of content that you share there and what people might expect to find if they follow you?
Yeah, so on Twitter and LinkedIn, so I share a lot of content about my work. For example, if I publish a paper in Nature and I want everyone to know about it, I just put it out there on Twitter and say, "Oh, see what we've done." Mm-hmm. And I put that there because I want to hear people's opinion about the kind of science that we do in my group. I also want them to be aware about the current state of work that is ongoing. Mm-hmm. For example, genetic risk score is very new in the African settings. Mm-hmm. And my group, we've done some two amazing work. One we published in a journal called Diabetes Care, and second one we published in Nature Medicine. So those two pieces of work are very, very important. Mm-hmm. So when those were published, I put it out there so that people can get to see the view of people about the work, so that I can also signpost them to read the work that we have done, and that can also help to improve citation of the work that we have done. And from that, you see people are contacting us to say, "Oh, we would like you to come to my university to present this work, this very exciting work." I think this kind of content are very, very important. And sometimes there are so many good news coming up from our group. Just like last week, one of my postdocs was awarded a prestigious Welcome Early Career Fellowship. That was a big achievement. So I put that there just to encourage other people that it is possible, and also to know what is going on in the group. So I always put that content about those kind of good news. We've had so many people in my group that have won one fellowship or one award or the other. You know, if you're a PhD student, say in Uganda, you see another PhD student in Uganda on Twitter that's won an award. That would tell you that, oh, it is possible. I can also do it. Mm-hmm. Or you can ask question, where did you apply to? How did you apply for this fellowship? How can I take a step to do this? So those are the reasons why we put out those things on social media.
Yeah, and thank you for really breaking that down. I think it's really important that we continue to use some of the Twitter and the LinkedIn, because just like you said, it makes it so easy for people to connect and actually reach out for help rather than just passively receive content and not necessarily be able to engage and give feedback and share. And so I think that it's really, really great that we're able now to connect communities, and especially on social media where we're just in an era of everything is being shared on such a larger scale. We're learning about so many different cultures and backgrounds and stories. And it's only right that we bring some of those connections to science. So speaking of connections, can you tell us a little bit about the mission of the Nigerian Bioinformatics and Genomics Network and what led you to start it?
Wow, excellent question. So Nigerian Bioinformatics and Genomics Network, I founded that a couple of years ago for very similar reasons, because at that time, almost every day, and I mean almost every day, so I was receiving email from young scientists from Nigeria, which is my country of birth, and they were interested in learning about bioinformatics. They want to do some internship. They have some question, and that email kept on coming. So I was looking for a platform where I can put everybody together and teach everybody if that was possible, or guide everybody if that was possible. And that was the motivation for starting that platform, Nigerian Bioinformatics and Genomics Network. So that was the reason why we did that. So we set up that organization. We asked people to join for free. We were organizing some symposium. One of the symposium webinar that we did was how to write grants, or how to maybe something like mentorship. We organized conferences. We organized the very first Nigerian Bioinformatics conference in Lagos. We had more than 200 people came for that conference. We organized another second conference in a place called Kwara State in Nigeria. Just to put everybody together. And those conferences, they come with a workshop to train people, because it was not possible for me as a person to try and train each person one after the other, the way they were coming to me by email. But that platform provide that opportunity to support as many people as possible. So since that was done just last year, I've now handed over that platform as a president to another president who is now leading the organization.
Drawing from your earlier points when you're talking about challenges that you had, for instance, transitioning from your bachelor's to doing your master's and your PhD, I would like to ask your thoughts on what's the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and especially in computational biology and bioinformatics. And on top of that, what are your thoughts on ways in which we can actually increase representation of the Black people and as well the underrepresented population?
Wow, excellent question. Of course, I was expecting this question because that's one thing I'm known for my visibility. I'm an advocate for the need to increase diversity in genomics. And I've spoken about that. And I even got an award for that recently from the MRC UK. So it is very important to increase diversity in genomic study for many reasons. And I think it's better to give an example. If you ever had low cholesterol, or if you have heart attack, it is likely that you'll be given a medication or a drug that was developed from a gene called PCSK9. So PCSK9, I just give you the story of how that particular drug development was made. That was discovered because some African ancestry individuals were involved in a particular genetic study. So in that particular study, they discovered that those African ancestry individuals, they have this gene, PCSK9. They have mutation in this gene called PCSK9, which made them to naturally have lower cholesterol compared to other population. And from there, we have this drug. And this drug that we have now is not only useful for African ancestry individuals, but it's also useful for all population. So imagine that those Africans have not been included in that study. What that means is that we will not have that drug today, and there will be increase of heart attack and all kind of disease that we have today. So that's how important it is that we include all population in genomic study, because the purpose is to be able to make our life better, make us live longer, make us live healthier. So we must include all population. And most importantly, African has the greatest genetic diversity than all other population. So those diversity are very key for precision medicine, are very key for drug development. So we cannot continue genomic study without African data involved. So these are key, really, because of key discovery that must be made with this kind of data.
Yeah, thank you very much, Segun, for that. And just to highlight something that you mentioned, definitely with the formation of the Nigerian bioinformatics network, what's like one of your greatest highlights from just forming this network? There are some of accomplishment that you're like, oh yeah, I'm excited I did this for the young Africans in the continent. Yeah.
I think what I count as my achievements, not only for Nigeria, also for Uganda and for Mali and other places where I work in Africa, is always about the opportunity that I have to develop capacity. That's always what I count as my achievement, because I know the importance of that. So you train person that will be in capacity to train other people, that will be in capacity to train another person, and so on and so forth. And that's how we develop. So my achievement is that I've had the opportunity to train so many people in Nigeria, also so many people in Uganda, so many people in Mali. And that's always very exciting for me, because you don't know what those people, they will be doing in the next year. Just a few months ago, in February, I was in Cape Town attending the conference, and I met my former PhD supervisor. He was very excited to see me. He was very excited to see the kind of work I do and the kind of people that I train now. So I would also like to look forward to maybe in the next few years, I see my PhD students or my postdoc also leading research group or doing amazing science and publishing in Nature or Science or making some very big discovery. So I think that's my main achievement, is the opportunity I have to train other people.
Yeah, I do appreciate that. Yeah, and definitely thank you very much for what you do for all of us, and just putting us out there.
Sorry, I did want to just also
carry on.
Sort of expand on like what it means to be part of capacity building efforts. And thank you for shedding light on what that means. You know, it means training someone so that they can train someone, and really keep the efforts and the learning and community within the community. And I think a lot of times, at least what I observe in the US, especially in genomics, it's sort of the other way around, more about how much researchers can extract from Africa or African genomics, rather than actually contribute right to the efforts to train the next generation. So do you have anything, any light to shed on that contrast and that importance?
Okay. So every mentor or every supervisor needs to see that they have responsibility to their mentee, to their PhD students, and to their postdoc. You have responsibility to their future because the kind of training that you give them can determine what they are going to be doing in the next 5 years or 10 years or 20 years or even 50 years. So personally, that is how I see every person that I have the opportunity to come across me. So I see myself as, this is my responsibility. I must create a good impression with this person. I must help this person to build their career or to build their future. So that is personally what I say. And I hope that all of my colleagues all over the world, in the US and the UK also, can see their responsibility that way, that we have, it's an opportunity for us to be able to contribute to somebody's life, to be able to contribute to somebody's career. So that is what I say. So I don't see the students as, I want to take something from them. I want to get something from that. I don't think it is right to see that you want to get from them without giving back to them. For every success that I've recorded in my group, I always tell my postdoc and PhD that when they win, I win. So when somebody wins a fellowship or they win a grant or they publish a paper, it is their success. It's also my success because it contributes to me. And so I want to work hard to make sure that they win, because that also helped me to win. And that will help them also in the future. So that's the way I see it. And that's where I think that every person should see it.
I would not like to underscore your work and definitely the contribution of H3 Bionet and definitely H3 Africa in sequencing of human DNA and specifically of African ancestry. But still, we are lagging behind. I've read a couple of your papers whereby you've really you've clearly stated that there is a very great disparity between definitely the number of genomes from African continent compared to, for instance, the European ancestry, which is the leading so far. And I'm wondering, do you have thoughts on what's the future of genomic research in Africa, and what are some of the hurdles and barriers that you think one can face when pursuing that? And definitely, I think you being a principal investigator in this case, probably you've thought about some of those barriers, and what do you think about them?
Yeah, okay. I think this is very important. And I would like to start by mentioning that in the last 10 years, we have made a lot of progress in genomics in Africa, even though Africa is still underrepresented in genomics. So previously, many years ago, so the approach is that people from the high-income country, so they fly to low-income country, they go to the rural community and take sample, and also fly back to their country without any consideration to those communities where they have taken sample. But that has changed. Parachute science is no more what it used to be. People cannot do that again for genomic study, but things have changed. In the last 10 years, we've had the H3 Africa. There have been a lot of investments in Africa from the NIH, from the Wellcome Trust, and from other sources. And that investment, there have been so many people that have been trained, including PhD students and postdocs. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I was one of the very first postdocs in 2013 that was trained from the H3 Africa. And I'm so happy with what I'm doing today. I'm just one of those people, many people that have been trained, that have had opportunities to now move on from that training and taking their career further. So this is very important. And I believe solely that for us to be able to increase diversity in genomics, one approach is that we need to train more people. So when you train more people and they know what they are doing, they will be in a position to be able to be a leader and taking initiative and defining the agenda for genomics in Africa or in their own country. So capacity building is key. The kind of training that I had, like I mentioned, I had my postdoc at the Wellcome Saga Institute. So during my postdoc, I was in a position to be one of the lead for that project. And since that time, I've now been taking that lead position at the MRC in Uganda. And if there are many people also doing that, maybe somebody that have gone for postdoc in the US are doing that in Nigeria, or somebody that gone for postdoc in the UK doing that in Kampala, or doing that in Congo, or in Mali, or in Ethiopia, or in Egypt. So that means that we're going to have multiple effects of many people doing genomic study. With that, we are going to be able to improve representation of genomics of African in genomics.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. I especially really liked how you've highlighted what quote unquote parachute science, or sometimes called helicopter science, used to look like especially in developing countries. But I think that now that we do have more frameworks and opportunities for people to be trained and have their skills shared, and actually also be trained in ways where they can make direct impact on their communities. I definitely agree with you and appreciate you sharing how much progress has been made and where we are going as a collective. So we'll wrap up with a closing question where we'll just ask you to take a look back over your years as a faculty member, or even just as a mentor in general. What advice would you give to your younger self or your former self? Are there things that you wish you had known before or done differently? What's that tidbit there?
Okay, that's a very difficult question.
Take your time.
Okay, I think one thing I would say is have mentors and listen to them. If you are very lucky to have a good mentor, it helps to move faster. So you don't move around for too long. So that's one advice I will give to my younger person. And also, I would say that when I was coming up as doing my bachelor degree, these days, you cannot just study computer science. You have to be multidisciplinary. If I were in university, I would like to take course in genetics, or take course in biology, or take course that are very relevant to what I'm doing today. I didn't do that when doing my bachelor degree, and I had to learn that in a very hard way. So if I were advising my younger person, I would say, even though you have studied computer science, So think about the kind of world that we are is very multidisciplinary. Can you take course even in history? Take course, just say something very different and just enjoy it, because those are very, very key. And one of the advice is that we're now in the age of artificial intelligence, internet age. So those are very key, and those should be used, should maximize them, optimize them, use them in a legal way that will help to boost your career.
Absolutely. I think also we can also admit, being in such an interdisciplinary field, I'm sure a lot of us wish we had, more math or more biology, but the best thing, especially that, I've learned from you today, is that luckily we're doing things in community. And I think personally, that's one of the best aspects of our field of computational biology. So thank you for sharing that. Melyssa?
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us today, Dr. Fatumo. We really enjoyed learning about your research and your outreach efforts, capacity building in community. We wish you luck in your future endeavors and would really welcome any future collaborations between the Nigerian Bioinformatics and Genomics Network and BlackInCompBio network as well. So looking forward to any future potential collaborations there.
Great. Thank you very much. Yeah. Have a nice day.
Yes.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Yeah, bye.
To our listeners, thanks for tuning in to another podcast. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Until next time.
The Black Women in Computational Biology Network is an online networking platform accelerating opportunity at the intersection of biology, math, and computer science worldwide. This podcast is produced, edited, and published independently by Jenea Adams and Melyssa Minto. We'd like to thank our community at Cambridge Innovation Center, Philadelphia for their studio resources as well. Find out more at blackwomencompbio.org or get a jumpstart on all things BWCB at our Linktree link, which you can find at linktr.ee/BWCB.